This is the CitizenLink Report.
If you find our insights helpful, would you support our video efforts? Your gift of $25 or more goes a long ways. Covers the crew, lights, cameras, all that. Just click on Donate. Thanks from all of us. The edges of your religious freedom are being defined by a couple court cases involving a Mississippi congregation and a New Mexico wedding photographer. This is the CitizenLink Report. I'm Stuart Shepard along with Bruce Hausknecht, who tracks issues in the courts for us. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Stuart.
First, let's talk about the church in Holly Springs, Mississippi. What happened and what's the outcome?
Well, this was a small church, but it was growing, needed new space. Wanted to relocate to the town center, which is the courthouse square, as they refer to it.
Yeah.
And found some space, wanted to lease it. There was one problem.
The city said?
The city said, I'm sorry, no. We have some requirements that you have to meet, which nobody else has to meet if they're a business or a museum or a library. They don't have to meet it, but a church, you have to go out and meet this one extra thing.
Which was to have 60% of the business owners say okay, and the mayor had to say okay.
Right.
That seems like a high hurdle.
Well, it's one extra hoop that they put a religious institution through, and that violates federal law.
Now, this has been bouncing up and down through the courts a bit, but now we have what appears to be a final decision.
Apparently, yes, because the church won a major victory last fall at the Fifth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in New Orleans. And because of that victory, they were able to, the attorneys for the church were able to settle with the city so that this church can now go use the space that it's entitled to.
All right. Well, that's good news there. What does that mean for the rest of us? How does that apply to churches everywhere?
There's a federal law that has to do with religious land use. And basically it says churches are entitled to the same deal as anybody else with regard to zoning issues and other ordinances and local regulations that control who can use, buy, or lease a space. So it's just kind of a common sense approach to law that says churches and religious organizations get the same shake that everybody else does.
All right. The other case we've been watching for some time, it deals with the New Mexico wedding photographer who turned down some business. Tell us about that one.
And this is Elaine Photography in Albuquerque. This case has been now floating around since 2006, which is the year that this mom and pop, or husband and wife, Christian photography studio turned down a business at a same-sex commitment ceremony to photograph it. They said, I'm sorry, that would violate our own religious conscience, but there are numerous other photographers who could help you.
And then
a complaint was filed with the New Mexico Human Rights Commission alleging sexual orientation discrimination. And this couple suddenly found themselves in the court system. And they lost. And they lost again. This case is now currently at the Supreme Court of New Mexico, where they heard oral arguments this week.
And tell us, do you have any sense of how those oral arguments went? Are they perhaps going to follow the same direction as the lower courts?
Well, the news reports I read this morning said that there was a lot of questioning on either side, so there seemed to be some division on the court as to how this case should come out.
There are two aspects of this we need to talk about. The first one is whether someone who does an artistic work, whether it's painting a painting, taking a photograph, especially portraiture like you would for a wedding, or even baking a cake for a special occasion, do folks have the right to choose how they use their creative expression in a case like this? Do they?
Yes, they do under the First Amendment. It's a doctrine called compelled speech. The government should not be telling people what they have to say, especially artists who choose what they want to paint or photograph or write about. And if the government is saying, no, you have to write or photograph or paint this, what we tell you to, that's compelled speech, and that violates the First Amendment.
And one can imagine, I mean, if you take this and transfer it to, say, a theatrical production, say it's a musical or a drama, and the government and or another outside entity comes in and says, you will perform a play that pushes an agenda that we choose for you, even if you oppose it.
Right, and the courts have said for a long time that you cannot compel that type of speech. Now, the legal question in this case is, how close does that come to those other cases? And where does religion fit into this? Because the religious conscience of this couple is protected under the First Amendment and under the State Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So there are some protections there that are being violated.
There are also some state laws, and this is the other half of this, that are being passed around the country. They're usually presented as accommodations laws. Tell us about those and how they play into this kind of case.
Most public accommodations laws have to do with hotels, restaurants, bus lines, trains, accommodations where people are free to come and go and are compelled, the owners of these places are compelled by law to allow anybody to use those services. It's in roughly 20 or more states that also say that if you own a business, whether it's selling widgets or running a hotel, you also are subject to all of these non-discrimination laws. And a host of states have passed sexual orientation non-discrimination laws, which have put religion and sexual orientation on a collision course in the courts.
Now, when most people hear non-discrimination law, they think, I'm for that.
Right. Well, this isn't a case of a hardware store refusing to sell a hammer to a gay couple. This is a case where a person is using their artistic talents to photograph something that is completely contrary to their deeply held religious beliefs. And that's where the religious aspect gets into play here.
And we're seeing very real examples of that. We're talking about a wedding photographer in New Mexico, but it also happened with a t-shirt maker in Lexington. It happened with a cake baker in Denver, Colorado, and another one up in the Northwest.
It's happening, and same with facilities. Bed and breakfast, Christian bed and breakfast owners in Vermont and Illinois and Hawaii and other places are being asked to host civil union receptions or civil union wedding ceremonies. And they're saying, no, I can't do that because that shows my endorsement of that, and they're getting sued.
Yeah. What do we do? I mean, what's the appropriate response to this as a Christian who believes in marriage as one man and one woman?
Well, I think we need to fight in the courts and in the legislatures for religious freedom rights. I think they're being slowly pushed back to some place that our founders never imagined. Secondly, I think when we have to be considerate also when people come to our businesses, and yes, we don't agree with their lifestyle, but we can be accommodating. But they should be accommodating as well and accept a referral to the bakery next door down the block.
Now, we've been getting quite a bit of feedback on this, both through email and also through Facebook and other places. I just want to take a moment and kind of explain the distinction here and give you a chance to explain the distinction. It's one thing for someone, say a gay couple, to come into a photography store and say, I want to buy that photo that you've already taken on the wall. It's something else to say, I want you to photograph an event for me and use your skill, your creative ability, your artistic talent to create portraits of an event, right?
Yes, exactly, because that creativity is within the control, ought to be within the control of the artist. You would not ask a Jewish portrait painter to paint a picture of the Holocaust, for example, and expect them to not object or not to suggest another art studio down the block. It's a simple matter of fairness and consideration.
Same thing with the baker. It's one thing to come in and say, I would like to buy that sheet cake you've already made or these cookies that you've already baked. It's another to say, I want you to create a special cake for a special event that you have a religious objection to.
And it's simply being sensitive to what the person's religious faith would make them awkward about doing. And that's what we're talking about, is their conscience.
All right. Bruce, thank you for your insights. Appreciate your laying this out for us, explaining it a bit. And we appreciate you watching. We're happy to have you drop by each week for our CitizenLink reports. We do appreciate hearing from you. You may always write to us at mail@citizenlink.com. Pray for the families who are involved in all of these cases that we've talked about. Pray for the families of that church in Mississippi as they hopefully now get to move into the building that they've been trying to move into for a while here. And also pray for the wedding photographer and the t-shirt maker and the cake baker, all of whom, because of their Christian faith, are being persecuted out there by the courts, the government, and by others who are protesting their businesses. Pray that they would have peace of mind to be able to see a clear path through all of this. And remember, stand tall and be heard.